Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. Today is Saturday, so I'm doing my Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 2 review. However, I wanted to start off by saying, as I'm sure we've all heard, Chadwick Boseman passed away last night. It came out that he was battling stage 4 colon cancer, that he was diagnosed in 2016, so 4 years ago, which means that he had cancer all through Black Panther. He had cancer while playing Marshall, 21 Bridges, The Five Bloods, which we literally just watched in June. I really feel like I'm shocked. I'm in a state of shock. He went to Howard. He was a Howard Bison. And it's just like, what? Excuse me? I can't believe it, Chadwick Boseman was a Black American. He was a descendant of American chattel slavery. He played a lot of our heroes. He played Jackie Robinson. He played James Brown, Thurgood Marshall. Obviously, he was in Black Panther, which everybody knows. But it's just, you never know what somebody's going through. I really want to say that because we all know, maybe a year or so ago, he got really, really skinny. There was all these rumors flying all over the internet, people saying he was hooked on drugs, people just saying horrible, horrible things. And it is true that you never know, especially when someone's physical appearance changes, you just never know what they're going through. He chose to keep it totally private. Not one whiff of this got leaked to the media that he was fighting cancer. And he finally passed away from it. And it's just so sad and so shocking. And, same year as Kobe, same year as Little Richard, same year as Bill Withers. It really does feel, same year as the pandemic, same year as the United States Postal Service. It feels like the Black American community is just really getting hammered this year. The police brutality, the lives being lost, we're really getting hit hard. I saw this tweet, someone sent it to me on Instagram, that was it almost feels like we've been in a collective state of mourning or grief since January. Kobe Bryant died in January. And it's just been nonstop. I'm ready for this year to end. And I'm sorry to kind of start off this review on this sort of solemn note, but I just felt like it had to be talked about and addressed. So rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. I hope he's found some peace. I'm sure he was in a lot of pain. I don't even know what he was going through, physically and emotionally. And there's been clips of an interview circulating around where he's talking to children that had cancer, and now knowing that he had cancer. It's just horrible. But he did say repeatedly, which I'm sure being diagnosed with cancer so young, he was only 43 years old when he passed away. So I'm sure being diagnosed with cancer so young, he's talked a lot about legacy and the importance of activism and what is going to be the legacy that he's leaving behind. And, which I think was probably a part of why he wanted to play these Black American historical figures and leave a legacy, for the future generations of Black Americans, for our children to have these pictures that they can see and know about us and about our history and about who we are. So thank you for that, Chadwick Boseman. And I will always, you will always be in my heart and you will always be in our hearts. So I just wanted to say that before getting into this review. So, Lovecraft Country, Episode 2. I'm going to actually do this one in good, the bad, and the ugly format with a recap as well. I don't have any ugly per se, but I did have some bad. I liked this one a little bit less than the first one, which we'll get to a little bit closer towards the end when we do the bad. So, let's start off with the good and with the recap. So, it started off with the Jefferson theme song, which was written by a hidden figure. Hold on, let me look that up. Yes, the Jefferson's theme song by Jeanette DuBois. I don't know why when you initially Google this, some white man pops up. It pops up as if this white dude that was born in 1965 wrote the Jefferson's theme song. I literally have no idea why it does this when the theme song was written and composed and performed by Jeanette DuBois, who also passed away recently. I did a Hidden Figures on her. But the episode opens up with the Jeffersons theme song, and they're in this mansion that we saw them arrive in at the end of episode 1. And I literally put in my notes, like, oh, they moving on up in the mansion. Okay. Like, they're dancing around. Journey Smollett is in a room with, like, a closet full of beautiful clothes tailored just for her. Uncle George is in a room full of books, all the books that he loves. And Jonathan Majors is like, okay, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Like, we just saw a bunch of monsters bite the shit out of people. Like, I wouldn't just be just chilling in the mansion. And then as I'm watching, I'm thinking, like, is he the only one that remembers? And then it turns out that, yes, I keep saying Journey, Letty and Uncle George have had their memories completely erased. They don't remember anything about the monsters. They don't even remember really anything about the trip at all. I noticed while watching that I kind of felt like the mansion that they were in reminded me of Jeremy Irons' house in Watchmen, the Watchmen HBO show. And while watching, I felt like there were other Easter eggs that were sort of nods to Watchmen. I have a little theory going on that in my mind that I'm also going to get to at the end. But from these early scenes where they're showing the mansion, so they kind of go out of their way to show you this sort of 3D view of the mansion from the outside and how big it is, and to have these sort of 360 like pan arounds with the camera so you can see all around it and in the inside. And literally the first thing I thought was like, big ass mansion looking like Jeremy Irons' house on Watchmen. What is that about? So Jonathan Majors points out how creepy it is that they just so happen to have everything that they want in the mansion, like as if this is Needful Things by Stephen King. Like, yeah, we have everything you just so happen to want. And previously, the white dude had also mentioned that they have been expecting them. So it's just like, what is this about? As soon as I seen this white dude again, I thought of the motherfucking Swedes from the Umbrella Academy, and I was just like, I don't trust him. Like, I don't trust you. When I saw what Journey came out wearing, I was like, she's dressed like an equestrian. So he rings this like lunch bell, this dinner bell, which weirded me out because I just felt like they have no idea what's going on. So it's just like, you're ringing a dinner bell, like, we a bunch of niggas, like, you're white, like, are you about to eat us? Like, what's going on? And Letty and Uncle George, since they can't really remember anything, they're kind of just rolling with the punches. And I think that Jonathan Majors here is supposed to sort of more so represent the audience because he still has the memory of what happened, and he's very suspicious. And it's not explained why he has his memory, but the other two don't. We learned that the white woman that saved them in the last episode and the woman that was last seen with his father was Christina Bretwife, who is the daughter of the current owner of the property, Samuel Bretwife, who is a descendant of Titus. So we learned that that was her silver car, her silver Bentley. But he also goes out of his way to say that she had many cars. I don't know if that was just like a throwaway line or if that's going to be something that comes back to us later on. But we see them get shown out to a veranda to eat. Journey has this really funny moment where she rings the bell for the white dude to come back, and she's like, I need the salt. And then she's like, y'all know white folks don't season their food. I thought there was like a really interesting kind of role reversal occurring there where we have this white dude that is basically serving these black people. And Jonathan Majors continues to like ask him if he's a butler or call him a butler. And he continuously repeats that he's not the butler, and yet he's kind of being required to wait on these black people. So I thought that that was a really interesting inversion of what we normally see, especially for this time period. So while they're sitting out there eating, Jonathan Majors asks them, like, how can y'all be acting so calm and normal after what just happened? And then they realize, Uncle George and Letty realize that they don't remember what happened at all. And he's like, we were attacked. And then Letty's like, by the sheriff? And he's like, by monsters, you know? Like, I had to shoot the sheriff. She was like, you shot the sheriff? And then, you know, in my head, I shot the sheriff. But anyways, she was like, you shot the sheriff? And he was like, I had to. We were being attacked by monsters. Like, and they totally forgot. So they definitely did not remember. Later on in the show, we find out that Jonathan Majors is also, spoiler alert, as you guys know, these reviews do have spoilers, obviously. Later on in the episode, we find out that Jonathan Majors is also a descendant of Titus Brett-White, which makes me wonder if that is the reason why the memory spell didn't work on him, because also in this episode there are some revelations about spells and about magic. It's never explicitly explained why he retained his memory and they didn't, but I kind of feel like the implication was that he's sort of this Brett White kind of magical blood, which also plays into H.P. Lovecraft, blood, legacy, heritage, magic. We learn that his father is there let me not say chilling, but he kind of sets it up like as if, oh, your father is here as a guest. I feel like they kind of danced around the fact that his father was actually a prisoner, just like they were. You know, he's kind of trying to treat them with this, almost like as if he's a butler. But then when Jonathan Majors called him the butler, he was like, I'm not the butler. He's like, where's my father? He's like, well, your father left with Miss Brett White. I don't know how you pronounce that name, Brett, even though they pronounce it several times, but you know, I have it written down. It's like Brett White, something like that. And he's like, oh, your father left with them. Like, and then we find out later on, like, no, your father's in a pit, in a hole, you know. And Jonathan Majors is like, what does this have to do with my father? Like, why is my father here? Like, why am I here? And instead of sort of giving them a straightforward answer, they learn all about the history of this mansion that they're in, that essentially it was a lodge that was ultimately founded by this man named Titus Brett-White, who built the lodge so he and his friends could retreat in private. There's this huge picture of the dude in a motherfucking Klan hood. I thought, okay, he's clearly a Klansman. Like, he has a fucking Klan robe on. It wasn't white. It was like black or, you know, like a navy blue, but it had this hood and it looked very racist. And they asked, like, well, where did he get the money to build this place? Shipping. And then Letty, shipping, that's code for slaves, you know? And then he says, well, he was known as being notoriously kind to his slaves. He was a very nice massa. And then there was a fire that burned down the lodge and killed everyone. And it's just like, okay, that's not suspicious at all. They're walking through the mansion. They have all these fucking creepy-ass religious images, white angels and cherubs. But if you look closer, they're all kind of tweaked and weird. It's weird. It's very weird and creepy. I was very paranoid the whole time that they were, like, in the mansion, the whole time that they were, like, being shown around by the dude William, the whole time that they, like, sat down and this food was placed in front of them. They ended up eating the food. I wouldn't have ate the food. But Jonathan Majors basically says, like, we need to find Pop, we need to find my father, and we need to get out of here. So they end up leaving the veranda, and then they see their car, the car that we literally watched Journey crash into the cabin and totally fuck up. We see it parked in the garage. And Letty says, like, you said the car was crashed, because remember, they don't remember anything. And he's like, the car was crashed. Like, you crashed it after the monsters fucking attacked us. And then here comes the white dude, William. He's like, no, we found it parked on the other side of the bridge that leads to the village. And again, this was the bridge that when they initially were driving around looking for it, they couldn't find it. It was like this bridge didn't exist. Like, they were driving around in the woods. They never found it. It wasn't until after they were attacked by the monsters that they were walking, and then all of a sudden they found this bridge. And then the dude is like, well, we found your car on the other side of the bridge. My first thought, it's a magic bridge. It's clearly a magic bridge. Like, there's something going on here with magic, with portals. I don't know what's going on, but, like, we saw them. They walked there. They walked up to the mansion. They were covered in blood. The car was crashed, but now it's back and it's in perfect condition, except for the window being busted out in the back. He was like, well, the window was busted out and there was some blood in it, but, you know, we just cleaned it off and we decided to let it go. So they're kind of trying to make it seem like as if the only thing that happened was that, you know, they were chased out of the town with the people shooting at them, and then that the situation with the sheriff happened, but that the rest of it didn't happen. And then something really interesting happens where Uncle George and Letty have this conversation about perhaps Jonathan Majors is suffering from PTSD and is shell-shocked from his time fighting in the Korean War, and that maybe he imagined the whole thing with the monsters. I hate this. This to me falls under the bad, but I'm going to mention it right now. I hate when I'm watching a movie or a TV show and something obviously weird is going on, but you have characters that refuse to believe that something weird is going on. Like, you guys don't have any memory. Like, Uncle George and Letty, they have no memory of anything that happened. If I woke up in a strange place that I've never been before, a fucking mansion, let alone I wake up in a room where they have literally all my favorite shit in there, clothes that fit me, that I love, books, this, that, and the third, and I have no memory. If somebody tells me we were in a fantastical situation where monsters attacked us and we had to fight them off in the car crash and we walked here and you just don't remember, I know I don't remember. Why would I go out of my way to make up a whole imaginary rendition of what happened? Like, well, maybe Jonathan Majors, maybe Tick is imagining things because he's shell-shocked and like, who knew, what he saw in the Korean War. I just feel like I would believe him just because they know they went on the trip, but neither of them can remember anything before this morning. Like, that's fucking weird. Like, even if what he's saying sounds totally wild and ridiculous, he remembers what happened and you don't. Clearly something happened that you forgot, so why not go along with it? Just like when I'm watching, this is just really how I always feel. Just like when I'm watching something, and they're like, a door slams, it was just the wind. Like, people really try to like rationalize shit away. And I guess maybe that's what people would do in real life too, but I just don't like it. It's unbelievable to me. It's like, what's happening doesn't make sense, which is literally what Tick says. He says, like, what's happening doesn't make sense. There's a library full of your favorite books. There's clothes in your exact size. Neither one of you remember what happened. I do. Stop trying to say that I'm crazy or this, that, and the third, So as they're outside discussing it, they hear this whistle, which is the same whistle that they heard the night before the monsters disappeared. So Tick is like, okay, what the fuck? Like, what is this whistle? What is this noise? What's going on? Y'all don't remember. I don't understand. He kind of like runs to go figure out where it's coming from. He comes across this fucking redneck hillbilly bitch with these fucking dogs, these fucking damn German shepherds on a fucking leash. And she's like, damn near setting the dogs on him. And I really thought I was like, these damn dogs, like, white people love setting dogs on fucking niggers, like, and then she's standing in front of this, it's like to me, it almost looked like a lighthouse, like a tower, and they think it's a jail. They said, like, what is this, like a jail? And she's like, no, it's not a jail. She opens it up, and it's full of, like, meat, like hanging racks of meat. And then she says it's for the animals. And then she goes on this whole, I don't want to call it a rant, but she talks to them about animals, and she says, yeah, we have a problem with black bears. They're smart, but they're not smart. They're clever enough to cause trouble. They're persistent. They're always putting their nose where it don't belong. I was like, she's talking about black people, not no damn bears. And that type of conversation is a microaggression, because you have people, white people, that will swear, no, she's talking about bears. She's not talking about black people. Why do black people have to take it so personal and make everything about race? And that's not just something they would say like in the 1960s where this show is set. That shit is still being said right now, right? Coded language, microaggressions, the use of words and terms and phrases that black people, we know exactly what they're talking about. I really enjoyed that they included that. And also the fact that she's literally a redneck hillbilly. Like, these black people are smarter than her, they're cleaner than her, they're better than her in every way imaginable, but because they are black and she is a fucking hillbilly, she thinks she's better than them. This is exactly how it is in real life. A silo, that's what the building is, a silo. So they think that this woman, this hillbilly, is keeping his father locked up in the stone foundation of the silo where she's keeping this like meat. So they decided they're going to come back later and try to bust him out. Then Uncle George kind of has a memory jogged as they're walking through across the grounds to go back up to the lodge. Because she says, like, oh, I suggest you get back up to the lodge before the sun goes down. Another reference to sundown towns. Because you don't want to miss dinner. Which, again, I was like, are they about to try to eat these niggas? Like, what is up with these constant food references? Like, where is this going? Some cannibalism did occur, but not in the way that I thought it was going to occur. We're going to get there, though. So as they're walking across the grounds, Uncle George's memory gets jogged. He says, wow, I remember something that your mother told me about her ancestors in these woods, that she is the descendant of a slave named Hannah who escaped her master's house after a fire. And then they begin to sort of put the two and two together, like, oh, Titus was known to be notoriously kind to his slaves, kind with his dick, aka he's a motherfucking rapist. After they leave, and they're, again, walking across the grounds, and Uncle George is sort of having this memory about something that Atticus's mom told him, the monsters fucking jump up and attack their asses again. And then here comes the fucking whistle again. And it turns out that this blonde chick, Christina Brett White, is actually the one with the whistle, the woman that drives the silver car. She blows the whistle. She calls away the monsters again. Like, do y'all believe in these fucking monsters now? Like, and she asks the fucking hillbilly racist bitch to escort them back to the lodge. 2 seconds later, Letty, why are we covered in dirt? I said, oh my God, they don't remember again. It just happened and they don't remember again. Yet Jonathan Majors, Atticus, he still remembers. So I was just like, what is going on? Like, is it the whistle? Like, is the whistle wiping their memories? Is it just being on the grounds wiping their memories? Like, why does Tick still remember and they don't remember shit and it's happening instantaneously, right? But again, later on, it's revealed that these people, these Brett Whites, they're into magic. I kind of feel like, again, that the bridge is like almost a magic portal, and that the whole grounds that this estate, that this lodge is on, it all seems to be like very, like they have all type of spells and enchantments on it. We see her father, Samuel, who runs the property now, fucking screaming, and they're doing something to him, and they're fucking taking out an organ. It looks like some weird ritual shit. It turns out later on that all this talk about, you want to get back before dinner, you want to get back before dinner, you want to get back before dinner. Dinner is this motherfucker's organ. Dinner is this motherfucker's organ. That they are a part of a secret society that is religious, and he gives this whole speech about, as Adam gave his rib to create Eve, I'm going to give some of my organs to all of y'all, that you might have some of, Titus Brentwaith in you. And they eat this nigga's organ. But I'm ahead of myself. We're not even there yet. Let's carry on. Uncle George is trying to remember. I kind of feel like for some reason the brain wipe is working a little bit more completely on Letty than on Uncle George. I don't know if that's because Uncle George and Tick are related by blood. Like, I'm not sure where that's going to go. But Uncle George throughout the episode is continuously trying to remembering, little bits and pieces of things here and there. And he ends up theorizing that the abduction of Tick's father was actually to bait Tick out there, which just sort of is setting the scene and setting the stage for Atticus to have like this huge importance. At this point in the episode, we don't know yet that Atticus is also a descendant of Titus Brentwaith, but the pieces are kind of being moved into place. They put all of them back in their respective rooms, and Uncle George goes right to a book that opens a secret passage in the wall, which made me wonder if maybe they've been here before and they don't remember. He travels down a secret passage into a library that's full of occult shit and picks up a book that's called Order of the Ancient Dawn. So I was like, okay, this is definitely headquarters for some cult shit, and that's why they took this dude's organ out. Like, let's see where this is gonna go. He ends up reading up on the rules and the rituals of this organization, which again is something that's going to come into play a little bit later on in the episode. There's a lot of jumping back and forth in between Tick, Uncle George, Letty, because they're separated, as well as the Brett Whites in this episode. So that was like a little bit for me as well. The introduction of these white characters overall had me a little bit confused, and I hope that these people don't become like main characters, especially the fucking white girl Christina. It seems like they might be setting that up to be something, and I really hope that they don't go in the direction of making her a love interest or, trying to make her some type of relatable character. We end up seeing later on her and Tick having these sort of numerous conversations about her being oppressed as a woman and him sort of being oppressed as black. And I was just like, do we really need this in episode 2, like, it kind of seems like they're already watering down the pursuits of our main characters in a way, to me, because it seems like they're introducing other characters and white ones really early to have like all this significance and importance, and I don't like that. I don't think I like that. Not enough to put it in the bad section, but it's something that I have my eye on. So Tick is actually brought into the room while they're cutting up her father and removing the organ and then sewing him back up. They actually ignored him the whole entire time that he was in there. They didn't acknowledge him at all. And then her father, Samuel, starts talking to Tick and, recognizing that he's in there. He talks about this painting that he has on the wall, more religious imagery. It's a painting of Adam, naming the animals after God has just created the world and created everything. And he goes on this sort of monologue about how Adam participates in creation, because Adam is the one that named everything and gave it its place in society. And so now we're kind of getting into these religious ideology that in a lot of ways were used to justify slavery and were used to justify racism. It's not outright said, yet the implications are there as we're sort of watching him talk. He says, like, what did Adam do? And Tick says, he put everything in its place. So obviously the Order of the Dawn, or I think that's what they're called, they have this. They're clearly racist as well as sexist and misogynist. And they have this idea that, God created the world and he put everything in a certain order in its place, and he was assisted by Adam. And so the niggers belong somewhere, the women belong somewhere, the animals belong somewhere. And there's obviously this overarching ideal that white men are supreme, that they're at the top of the food chain, that they're supposed to be almost like God, that Adam is, not that he is God, but that he is like a God, or, that just a lot of these ideologies that, God made white man in his image, and almost that the white man is supposed to rule, have dominion over the earth, like he's the God of the earth, while we have our, our supreme being, up in heaven, or, whatever you believe. In terms of like the show and the religious iconography of the show and the monologue and the speech, and Eve is a stupid troublemaking bitch. But then Christina kind of is against that. Christina says that biblical literalism, not liberalism. She says that biblical literalism is foolish, and she's like, that's not how it, that's not how it happened, that Eve was not a stupid troublemaking bitch that offered him the apple. Like, we all know that that's not what happened, even though her father clearly agrees that is what happened. He says, we had an elegant hierarchy, and then it became a mess of tribe and nations, which just really got me to thinking about the way that we still now live in a social hierarchy that places Black people, and especially Black Americans, at the bottom. And people really believe that this is the way that it's supposed to be, and throughout slavery and Jim Crow, and even up to this day to now, there's all this religious fervor, because religion was literally used to say that, like, the niggers are animals, and they need to be kept in their place. And this is what God wants, and this is what God ordained, that God and Adam that God created us, and Adam named us to all be in our place. And once people started trying to get out of their place and get above their station and not be slaves or not be this and that, that's when everything sort of became a mess, really drawing these clear lines and these clear parallels between religion and a lot of religious beliefs, racism, sexism, misogyny, patriarchy, all these, real life issues. I don't know if this is how it is in the book. Again, I haven't read the book, but this is what I'm seeing, obviously, in the show. A lot of these same themes were also explored in Watchmen. Only in Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan, ended up being a Black man. Yeah. So Christina's father says that in this scenario, he is Adam, he's not God, and that he doesn't want to see Tick again until the ceremony at dawn. So Christina takes him away and takes him back to his room. And then they sort of have this conversation where he says, there's something going on here, like, there's spells, there's magic, you did something to make them forget, y'all want some clan shit, grand wizards must be real. Like, there's some whole other shit going on. Christina reveals that the monsters are their guard dogs and that he should be a little bit more grateful to her because basically she saved them twice when she blew that whistle when the monsters attacked. He says, well, and she says that he needs to be a little bit nicer because with the predicament that they're in, he needs to be trying to make friends. And again, this is just getting back to like some standard microaggressions and the way that white people act towards black people. Of just like, well, why can't you just be a little bit nicer? Yes, we've kidnapped you. Yes, we've kidnapped your father. Yes, we're using magic on you and your relatives and your friends and your loved ones. Yes, you just watched them cut up my father and remove an organ, and we're not explaining anything, but maybe you should be a little bit nicer to us and try to make some friends within this racist, white supremacist, slaveholder household. And maybe things would be a little bit easier for you. Like, no, bitch. No. She won't take him to his father. She said that he should try to make friends. He tells her, if we're friends, remove the spell. He's like, if we're friends, remove the spell on Letty and Uncle George so they remember. And she doesn't even say a word. She's literally just like, okay, it's done. And then you hear Letty, Ted, from her room. And I was just like, damn, like she is a witch. Like she is an actual fucking witch. Like these people are witches. I don't know what is going on. Tate tries to go to leave the room. Now there's a motherfucking force field or something. Like he can't get out. Mind you, she hasn't waved her hands. She hasn't said not one word. She's using very high level magic, like in terms of, you know, the way that magic normally works in speculative fiction properties. Like she didn't have to wave her hands, no wand, no crystals, no nothing. Like, bitch, you are a very powerful witch. So it's like now they remember, but they're trapped. And as the scene unfolds, we end up seeing all three of them have separate hallucinations in their rooms. So it seems like Uncle George sees first love, that he tells her, you know, like, you're not real, you're not really here, you're dead. She specifically mentions Tulsa, which seemed like it was another Watchmen reference for me. She says like, oh, you know, remember Tulsa? Remember on your porch playing the what if game? What if magic was real? And you said that you would fly, and Montrose said that he would do this. You know, we could do that. We could do that again. And then he's like, no, like, you're dead. And then for Letty, we see for her little hallucination or spell or whatever is Tick coming to tell her that he'll never leave her, and, you know, they start to become intimate, and then she's like, wait, no, I don't want this. And this man goes to undo his pants, and his penis is a motherfucking snake, and there's a damn snake wrapped around his waist, which, going back to the scene where Samuel was getting his organ fucking removed, and they were talking about the Garden of Eden and the order of things, and Christina says how things, you know, what we know, that's not how things really happened. They actually had a picture in there of, you know, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and Adam's penis is a fucking snake. All the pictures are weird as fuck in the whole house with all these weird biblical references. And when I saw this picture of Adam and Eve, you know, having sex or about to have sex, but Adam's penis is the snake, I felt like there was an inference that when Christina said, but of course that's not how it happened, I felt like there was an inference there that Eve did not tempt Adam with the forbidden fruit, and instead Adam fucked Eve. Adam tempted Eve with the forbidden fruit, and that's how they lost their innocence, that his penis is the snake. I've never heard that before. I don't know if that's like a religious theory that's floating around out there, but I thought that was really interesting because I've never heard or seen that type of imagery before. And then for that to be what Letty ends up seeing in her hallucination was extremely interesting to me. For Jonathan Majors, Atticus, a fucking Korean bitch, jumps out of his closet and tries to fucking kill him, a Korean soldier, and he ends up killing her, choking her. He says her name. I think I have it written down. I don't have it written down. Tian, it was something like that. He says, like, stop, like, I don't want to hurt you. And he ends up killing her. So I was really curious about what was the symbolism of these hallucinations. I kind of felt like it was supposed to be like an Adam and Eve type of allegory, that they were attempting to tempt them with this forbidden fruit, with this forbidden pleasure. For Uncle George, it was having this childhood love, this lost love, excuse me, love, this dead woman come back and attempt to tempt him. But he said, no, you're dead. For Letty, it was having Atticus come and, say that he loves her and he'll never leave her, and, them being intimate. But then she said, like, stop, like, this is not what I want. And then it turned out his penis was a motherfucking snake anyway. But then for Tick, his was this Korean girl jumping out of the closet, and he did, in fact, kill her. So I'm wondering if he failed and they passed, or, I'm curious about if that's going to be explained, especially because as we watch them in these scenarios, we end up seeing that they are having a meeting of the Order of the Dawn, and they are watching all three of them in their respective rooms through these magic portals, again, with this like yellow golden light. They're watching them to see how they react. That's not really explained why they're watching them or what that means, if that's a part of the ritual, if they're trying to see what type of decisions they make, but that's just what I inferred from that scene. We also see a scene of what appears to be Christina Bretwife going to assist in the birth of a baby calf on a breached cow, but then it turns out that cows are apparently how they breed these these monsters. One of you guys told me the name of the monster. I think the monster might be the Shoggoth. If that's not it, please correct me, but it seems like they use cows to breed them. She fucking reaches her hand up and like pulls it out, and then she's like crying. She has the disgusting fucking monster all on her. I was just like, I guess thank you for letting us know that that's how the fucking monsters are bred by this weird ass family, but gross. Also, when Letty is having her hallucination with the fake Jonathan Majors, she reveals that she was left alone a lot by her mom. They talk about the prayer that she said before she crashed the car, and she says, I don't even know I still remembered that. I used to say that when my mom would leave me alone. She says, like, my mom always came back with another dude on her arm, but until she didn't. And then a week went by, and then another week went by, and I was so scared because I was little. I sat in the boarding, and I couldn't take care of myself. I sat in the boarding house, and I said that scripture while I waited for my mom. And then, like, she said that in that, traumatic situation with the monsters, it just came out when she crashed the car. So I was wondering, like, was her mom hooking? Or, I'm a little bit curious, wondering if they're going to go in that a little bit more depth, especially because it seems like all three of her children have different fathers. So I'm really curious about if they're going to flesh that out a little bit more. I'm sure they are, especially as we see more things kind of play out with her family. Some of you guys left comments on my last video letting me know that the actress that plays her sister Ruby, the dark-skinned woman that she was singing with, is actually Nigerian in real life, which just made me laugh because I just really feel like Hollywood really believes that there are no dark-skinned Black Americans. Really. Like, if you want a dark-skinned Black actor, it's really like they have to go get some type of foreign Black. And if you want somebody playing a Black American, they have to be light-skinned or biracial. It just really seems like that's the way that Hollywood views us. I had to throw that little addendum in there. So when they revealed that the Order of the Dawn was having their fancy pants dinner, their black tie dinner, and that they were watching all three of them have their hallucinations in their respective rooms, I really did think that it was some type of magic tempting, trying to get them to make a wrong choice, like Adam and Eve, like what choice are you gonna make? And it also kind of reminded me of the movie Cabin in the Woods, where they set these people up and they're watching them to see what choices they make. And they're drinking, they're having a grand old time, and yet we also see Christina walking around and we hear these whispers of like, what is she doing in here? Like, she's a woman. And then later on we hear this damn dinner bell again. And then it turns out that it is a dinner that is black tie only and men only. So Christina is not allowed to go. She's not even supposed to be there watching the portal. Again, racist and misogynist, obviously, yet I still feel like they're trying to turn Christina into some type of sympathetic white woman figure, white feminist, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, she's oppressed too. I'm not feeling that. Y'all know how I feel about white women and white feminism and this idea that they are oppressed. Like, no. Like, it's not comparable to systemic racism. It's just not. Like white women and white feminism are they're the right hand of white supremacy. Like, you're assisting in this like racist endeavor with these Black people, and yet you want these Black people to sympathize with you because you're a woman. She has this conversation with Tick where when she gives him a ring, Order of the Dawn ring, because it turns out that, again, he is a descendant of Titus, where she says, like, there's nothing I could do in my life to ever earn this, but you get it just for being born a man. And he's like, and a black man at that, like, I'm not even white, and I'm still, almost like on some, and I'm still over you type shit. I ain't like that. Like, not enough yet. It's not getting on my nerves enough yet to put it in the bag, but I don't think I like where that's going. So we'll see. Although women obviously are, you know, oppressed due to sexism and patriarchy, white women still have the benefit of the doubt due to their skin color. White women were still able to own slaves. The whole white feminist movement and wanting to vote and all those things came because the discussion came to give black men the right to vote, and it was literally like, we will fucking kill everyone before we will let niggers get the right to vote before us. And then it became votes for women, but they really meant white women. And historically, we see that, like, white women enable, you know, white supremacy. They enable anti-black racism. You know, they're right there along with white men. Yes, they are oppressed by white men. Yes, absolutely. And yet they still have racial power. Like, Christina Bretweiss in real life would still have racial power over Atticus. So it kind of felt cheap to have her take this place as a victim. Like, you get this ring and I don't because I'm a woman and you're a man. It's like, bitch, but I'm still a nigger and you can fucking walk out that door and get me lynched at any moment. You still have racial power over me. I felt like that was kind of like cheap. I don't know. So Uncle George and Atticus end up attending the dinner. It's full of motherfucking white racists staring. We hear the line, oh, look at how dark he is. I wasn't expecting it. That was the moment when I was like, okay, he's definitely a Bretweiss in some way or another, you know. And so then here comes the motherfucking Grand Wizard, Samuel Bretweiss, in his fucking clan robe. And I was like, he's going to make them eat this damn organ, like cannibalism. Like, wow, okay. And Uncle George goes to eat the shit and Tick is like, don't eat that. And as they're talking about, you know, what they're going to do in this ceremony and the Order of the Dawn, Uncle George ends up standing up to cause a scene. He says, you know, I know a little bit about fraternal organizations myself. I'm a Prince Hall Freemason, and I had to become a Prince Hall Freemason, which is a black version of the Freemasons. It was started by Prince Hall, an abolitionist who wasn't able to join the Freemasons due to his color. So I myself am a part of the Freemasons. Prince Hall was a real person. You guys know that I've also done videos on the Mosaic Templars of Little Rock, Arkansas, which was also a fraternal organization created to uplift Black Americans specifically. It started out as an organization to provide life insurance for Black Americans who were not given life insurance, who were not able to afford to bury our dead, and often we couldn't even bury our dead because all the cemeteries were segregated. They were white only, white dead bodies only. I wish I could zoom in. But the Mosaic Templars ended up becoming started as an organization where people could join and they paid their dues and the money would go towards, you know, if somebody in your family died and you needed money to bury them, they would send you the money. And then over time, they became so popular and they got so many Black Americans that joined that they ended up being able to give out personal loans, loans to create businesses. The Mosaic Templars was a huge part of the creation of a Black Wall Street on 9th Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. That was then demolished when the town built a highway through it. So I did like that they threw in that little bit of history about Black fraternal organizations and especially Freemason groups. And then Uncle George reveals that he found the book on the Order of the Dawn, that he read all their rules, and that he learned that men who are direct descendants of Titus are automatically members and not even regular members. They are known as sons among sons. And so he ends up calling the bluff of Samuel Bretweiss and being like, and I believe that my nephew Atticus is a direct descendant of Titus, so he is a son among sons in here, and he can give orders. He had the big play, he threw down the big joker, he called their bluff, Atticus stands up and goes along with it. He orders everyone to get out, and they all did it. So again, another inversion of a scene where we have a Black person, a Black American, giving orders to these white people, and they do it. They leave. They know it's true. They tried to call his bluff, and he pulled their card. Made me feel all motherfucking warm and fuzzy inside. He tries to order Samuel to return his father to him using that same kind of, I'm a son of sons, I'm a descendant of Titus, I order you to return my father to me. Samuel says, like, I don't really. He says, like, I'm not a religious zealot. I don't necessarily, like, wholeheartedly believe the rules like everybody else. So I'm not going to follow that. But you're useful for what I need to do, so I'm not going to kill you or anything like that right now. But don't confuse useful with indispensable. I did bring your father here to get you here. So I was like, damn, Uncle George was right. Like, his father was bait to lure them there. So then they end up, he's like, I'm still going to use you for my ceremony at dawn, and then after that you can have your father. Tick is like, fuck that, we're gonna go get my daddy right now. They go to the silo to try to get him. The racist redneck bitch pulls a shotgun on them and says, bunch of dumb animals, just like I thought. I was like, bitch, you are redneck trash. Here comes Letty to save the day, knocked her ass out with a shovel. They go down there to look for his father. Turns out his father tunneled his way out. How does Uncle George realize what happened? He uses his book knowledge. He says, the Count of Monte Cristo, because in the Count of Monte Cristo, that's how he escapes from the jail, the prison on the island. He tunnels his way out, but then he ends up having to fake his death anyway, and they throw him out in the way. It's a whole thing. I don't know if you guys have read the Count of Monte Cristo or seen the movie, but ultimately he tunneled his way out. I love that scene because it kind of reminded me of a series of unfortunate events in a lot of ways, of like using your book knowledge to get yourself out of a jam. And I love that it was Uncle George's character that did it, because it fits in consistently with what we've seen of his character thus far and all of this knowledge that he has from reading these books. They tunnel out, they find his father, they end up right behind him. They go get the car, they try to leave, bam! Right when they get across that bridge, they hit a fucking force field, and the whole fucking car crumples, which also reminded me of Cabin in the Woods, that exact same thing happens. Chris Hemsworth tries to fucking jump on a fucking motorcycle, he smacks the fucking force field. The two scenes of them watching on the portals and them smacking this force field, I don't know if, this was like a deliberate reference to Cabin in the Woods or if it was just an inspiration, but it really reminded me of Cabin in the Woods. Then after they fucking destroy their car and they're trying to like climb out, they play Killing Strangers by Marilyn Manson, which I was like, oh, this is John Wick music. We're killing strangers so we don't kill the ones that we love. We're killing strangers. I love that song. But it is John Wick music. But I thought it was a really interesting choice for that scene. I feel like all the musical choices, all of the, again, with this like contemporary music, like, I don't know what it's supposed to symbolize, but it was an interesting choice. They crash hard as fuck into the force field. They climb out of the car. Samuel Brentwick is there. He fucking shoots Letty. And he shoots the uncle. And he's like, listen, I'm tired of playing with you. You're participating in this ceremony one way or the other. So, do you want me to save them or not? Turns out this man is a goddamn necromancer and can bring people back from the dead. Like, they have real magic. Like, really real magic. Like, we can save her if you participate. We can save, and then I'll save your uncle at the end, like, oh, in some good faith, I'll save Letty first, and then I'll save your uncle at the end. You have to participate in our ceremony, though. They got this nigga naked at the end of the episode on some damn Handmaid's Tale type shit, and we learn that what Christina's father ultimately intends to do is to open a portal to the Garden of Eden. He's trying to he's in a search for paradise and immortality, and, to get everything back in its perfect, elegant hierarchical design. And it essentially seemed, it's not explicitly explained what the ritual was, but it seemed like Tick is some type of sacrifice. They start speaking in the language of Adam. They call themselves the sons of Adam. And they're doing this spell that seems almost like it's using his life force to open up this portal. As the portal starts to open, we see, flowers starting to grow. We see all these things. And yet something starts to go wrong. And Tick sees his ancestor, Hannah, standing there, pregnant, slave. The music that plays for the ceremony, I wasn't sure if this was just like overlay music, or if we're supposed to believe that this is the music that, well, I guess the song is from later than the setting, the time period. I don't know. You guys can let me know. The music that plays while they're opening the portal is Gil Scott-Heron, Whitey's on the Moon, which is also the title of the episode. I felt like it was really bizarre, but it fits into my theory that I'm going to relay at the end of this video. But they're playing Whitey's on the Moon, which is a story about which is a poem, by Gil Scott-Heron that's basically about how white people will ruin the whole planet for everyone, and then they will just abandon it and go to the moon, which is really what's happening right now with fucking Elon Musk and, all this shit. And this is what they're playing as they're attempting to sort of open this door into Eden. And it's clearly hurting Tick, like it's sucking his energy. It's this like yellow energy coming out of him. He's screaming. The portal is growing plants. It seems like it's all using his life force. And I was just watching like, this is some hard motherfucking sci-fi. Like this shit is weird as fuck and surreal as fuck. Like it seems like there are no rules whatsoever for this show for what's gonna happen. And yet, as we're watching, we can tell that it's not working the way that they want. Some of the other sons of Adam start, they get scared and they run away. The flowers start dying. People start being disintegrated. And Samuel Brentwood, Christina's father, ends up turning into stone. So I kind of feel like Tick did that himself before the ceremony started. He has this talk with motherfucking Christina again. That was actually where they had the talk about how he's a descendant of Titus, and she gives him the ring, and they have their whole white feminist conversation. And she basically tells him, like, you're more powerful than you think. She kind of implies that he can do magic, and I kind of feel like he turned their magic on them with the help of his ancestor, who we see, and then we sort of see this fire, and the whole lodge disintegrates. It's almost like he reaches through time and space and reaches her, and she appears to him, and she sets the fire again, and she runs out, and he follows her out into safety while the lodge disintegrates around them. They don't show if Christina got out, but I think she did. We also see that Journey does wake up. She comes back to life. She's covered in blood. She obviously has a memory of her own death. She knows what happened. She's totally hysterical, crying. There's blood all over her. There's blood on her mouth. But Letty and George and his father, Michael K. Williams, Montrose, they end up getting out. They have to carry out Uncle George, who's been shot in the gut. He's losing a lot of blood. He is still alive at that moment. But they take him out. So they luckily get out before the whole building gets destroyed. But it seemed like as if Tick was working in tandem with his ancestor Hana, and they destroyed the building. They killed everyone, and they totally ruined the ceremony. There is a scene during the ceremony between Montrose and Uncle George where they discuss that at one point Montrose also loved to draw, and Uncle George basically says, like, you were so full of love, like, what happened? Because now that we've actually seen his father and seen the way that Montrose and Tick kind of interact, he's very mean to Tick, just really brutal and hurtful and spiteful and hateful. And we end up discovering that George and Montrose's father, so Tick's grandfather, discovered that Montrose was drawing for the Negro baseball players, and that he beat him. He beat him for it. He beat him for drawing. He beat him for being artistic. He beat him for being creative. He hit him with a right hook. I think there might have been a little implication in there that his father may have also been a homosexual. I'm not really super sure about that, but just that he basically beat the shit out of him and turned him sort of into this hateful, spiteful person, which Montrose then also enacted on Atticus when he discovered Atticus being into speculative fiction and sci-fi and all the exact same things. So now we're talking about a cycle, right? We're talking about a cycle of generational trauma, and who's going to be the one to break the cycle? It seems like Uncle George is saying, like, who's going to be the one to break this? And then Uncle George drops a bomb that it's very possible that Tick is not actually Montrose's son. And then, of course, Uncle George dies, right? He dies from his bullet wound. So sets up a lot of things, drops a lot of bombs before passing. Since there is necromancy involved in the show, I don't know if he's going to end up being healed and coming back, even though Samuel does get killed. We also see that Tick has some type of powers of his own, so I wonder if he'll figure that out. Not sure. We'll see. But yeah, after the destruction of the lodge, Tick finds Letty, George, and his father in the car, Woody, and his Uncle George is dead. And woo, they've broken up about it. Like the acting, like Jonathan Majors acted so well in this scene. And I really throughout the episode, Journey as well, the scene where she wakes up from being dead and is just like hysterical, amazing. Michael K. Williams when he's like holding his brother and the tears, just really a powerful, solid last scene that really was acted really, really well. I thought the acting was really phenomenal in this episode. So I have a theory that this show will maybe cross over with Watchmen, or that these are some type of Watchmen Easter eggs. Maybe they share writers or something, you know, like how they drop Game of Thrones stuff in Westworld, but the Tulsa reference and, you know, the Whitey's on the Moon, playing Whitey's on the Moon while they open a door, a portal to Eden, made me think of Watchmen. Watchmen also had some religious, you know, Adam and Eve themes and imagery, especially because Ozymandias was living basically in the Garden of Eden on a moon of Jupiter. So the fact that they played Whitey's on the Moon when they were trying to open a portal to the Garden of Eden made me wonder, like, are they trying to open a portal to that Garden of Eden in particular, the one where Ozymandias is living on a moon of Jupiter? Like, is that why Whitey's on the Moon was a song choice? Is that why when Uncle George saw his first love, she mentioned Tulsa? Like, these appear to be direct tie-ins to Watchmen. So I'm really curious to see if that's going to end up panning out. I also feel like the show is just very hard sci-fi, again, in a way that I don't know if I've ever seen before on a television show that wasn't aimed at children. It's just very fantastical, very surreal. Nothing was, you know, there was no semblance of normalcy in the episode. I do think that might be off-putting for some people, for some viewers, so I'm actually going to use that to kind of segue into the bad. I did not like the setup of the monsters, you know, hard sci-fi, really fantastic. I did not like the setup of the monsters just to make them these pets or whatever. Hopefully we see more of them or they're explored some more on the show, but that felt anticlimactic to just make them kind of these like pets or guard dogs for the Bright Whites or whatever. I also felt like the introduction of this fantastical magic and this hard sci-fi fantasy this early, this is episode 2, I felt like the introduction of magic this early takes the stakes down a bit, you know, like they showed that they can bring people back, like they've showed their hand very early on with this display of high-level magic. Portals, hallucinations, force fields, spells, motherfucking necromancy, like that is a lot for episode 2. So whatever comes next must be damn twisty and turny and also a very serious high-stakes threat to convince me that they can't just like snap their fingers and end it. You know, they showed their hand a little early. Maybe they have more shit in their back pocket. I don't know, because I'm not really familiar with the book. Maybe this is all how it goes on the book. But I'm curious to see if they can keep up this momentum or if they showed their hand too early. Also, as I mentioned previously, I have some concerns about what's going to happen with these white main characters that have been introduced, especially Christina Bretweiss. I'm not going to be feeling it if they try to make her into some type of sympathetic character or whatever. Don't do that. We'll see where it goes. But I didn't think this one was as tightly plotted as episode 1, even though some major things did happen, some major reveals. Like on another show, this episode would have been like the season finale. So I'm just curious to see where they're gonna go moving forward. And again, once you're introducing like this type of magic and like literally able to like bring people back from the dead, literally able to like, they fix the car, like they're doing so much that I just don't want it to be, you know, like the Magicians where they like start off with all this fantastical shit and then the more you watch, you're just like, but I just saw them change time. Like, how are they getting their asses kicked like this? You know, like I just hope that they're able to keep up their momentum, and that they don't also get sidetracked with trying to make white people seem, nice and relatable, and not all whites are bad and white women have it hard too. It would really suck if they continued on with that narrative as we move forward. But I did enjoy it. Another one that I really enjoyed. I loved the hard sci-fi aspects of it. I thought that the Watchmen possible tie-in is really interesting. I'm going to keep watching to see if my theory on that is correct, because it seemed like there were some really direct Watchmen Easter eggs dropped in. I thought the acting in this episode was top notch. Everybody seemed like they were on their A game. We did lose a main character in Uncle George, but we did also gain his father, Michael K. Williams, and there is also the possibility that his uncle might come back. He might not, but he might come back. And I'm curious to see where it goes from here. Again, it seems like there's no rules on this show. It's a no-holds-barred show, so I don't know what's going to happen next. We'll have to see. So, Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.